watch, enjoy, and be amazed at Lincoln's statuary across America. You're on. Thank you.
The first thing I need to do is apologize to some of you. Most of you weren't here, but a couple of you were here 10 years ago when I did this before, and not much has changed. But we'll persevere here. Since I did this and put this together, Virginia and I have added a lot of Lincoln statues to the collection that I have, and those are in these two books down here. One is a book on Lincoln statues in Illinois, of which there are a goodly number, and then Lincoln statues across the United States, and that's what we're going to do. But this is not an exhaustive list by any means, and there's a whole lot more that, and we still don't have them all. So anyway, we're going to start with the Lincoln Memorial. This is Daniel Chester French's magnificent piece in the Lincoln Memorial. Probably a lot of you have seen that in Washington, D.C. And you're going to kill a light here, John? Oh, here, which one you want?
4 on the right.
4 on the right. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, there's, anyway, there we go. That's French's work, and he's got another one that we'll see after a bit here. This is in Statuary, in Statuary Hall under the rotunda at the Capitol building, and this is Vinnie Reeves' statue. Vinnie Reeves was just a teenager when she got the commission for this statue, and there's quite a long story, but we won't deal with that. This is Gunslim Borglund's gift to the people of the United States, and this is this marvelous work. He's got another bronze of it that we'll see after a while. Borglund, of course, is also the guy that did Mount Rushmore, and he's got there's another one yet that we'll see after a while. But if you were to give me a choice of any Lincoln statue, I'd take this one, but I didn't get a chance to. I don't get that choice. This is the Freedmen's Monument in Washington, D.C., and this has become a real controversial statue in the last couple of years, and there are a bunch of people that either want to take it down or move it, largely because of the position of the former slave who is in reality being raised up, but most people don't see that and object to the position that he is in, and I understand that, but it's still a neat piece. This is at Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. This is in the National Cathedral in a crypt, and there's another one in the National Cathedral that I didn't know about until we were gone, so there's just this one. There's lots of Lincoln statues around that this is just inside Ford's Theater in Washington. By the way, this is going from East Coast to West Coast. So just in case you wanted to know that. This is the summer home, and the Lincoln summer home at the Soldiers' Home. There's a home for retired soldiers, not necessarily officers, but just soldiers in Washington, D.C., and it's up away from the White House, and it was up a little bit, and Lincoln and his family went up there during the summer because it was cooler, because it was away from the swampy part of Washington, D.C., which is most of it, and so he rode back and forth every day from the summer home, but that's where that is. This is a Tredegar Ironworks in Richmond, Virginia. This statue was put up in 2007, 2003, one of those. And this has become a very controversial statue too, because this is in Richmond, Virginia, and this is the capital of the Confederacy, and here they've got a picture of Lincoln, or a statue of Lincoln. And there's been a lot of Southern people, and Jim was talking about the South will rise again and all that baloney, they've really complained about this particular piece, but I love it. This is Lincoln and Tad, his son, that when they visited Richmond, just after Richmond fell. And that was before Lee surrendered. It was raining that day, and Virginia was being particularly nice to Mr. Lincoln. Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee, has a huge Lincoln collection and has this statue at the entrance of it, and then Paul Manship's Lincoln the Hoosier Youth. That's a copy, and the original is in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at Lincoln National Life Building. Gettysburg National Monument. This is the outside the new visitor center. And that was a neat piece. This is the monument to the Gettysburg Address, and this is a Lincoln statue or Lincoln bust that was there. And as you can tell, they were working on that day, and they didn't want to clear out their stuff for me so that I could take a picture, so I took it anyway. Gettysburg, this is the Pennsylvania Monument. One of the things that when you go to some of these battlefields, especially one as popular as Gettysburg, is that you find out that some of these states try to outdo each other in monuments. And the Pennsylvania one is one of them that they really did a lot of stuff. This is in beautiful downtown Gettysburg. This is the town square, and this is a relatively recent statues, both of them, and they're really kind of fun. This is, I can't remember the official title of this, but what's neat about this is that this is a copy of one that's 31 feet tall, and it is now in front of the Lincoln Memorial, Lincoln Museum in Springfield, Illinois. So it's a huge thing, but this is, and that one was on tour for a while, and then it ended up in Springfield. But this is kind of a neat thing. This is Lincoln giving a tour of Gettysburg. This is celebrating the address. This is the Gettysburg City Library. You've got all sorts of interesting things in Gettysburg. This is in the rotunda in the Capitol building in Frankfort, Kentucky, the capital of Kentucky. And this is a magnificent work. And the Capitol building of Kentucky is gorgeous. It's probably second to our nation's capital, but it's just magnificent. And I just enjoyed taking pictures in this place and getting these pictures of Lincoln. By the way, the picture on the far left is, come on, DH, who was the president of the Confederacy? Yeah, Jefferson Davis, who was born in Kentucky about 30 miles from where Lincoln was born in Kentucky. Yeah, just a year earlier. And so they've got Jefferson Davis in there too, which brings up all sorts of interesting questions, but we won't go there. This is in Springfield, Kentucky. This is a statue that we found there. And then this is, I took this because this is, there was the certified marriage bond of Thomas Lincoln to Nancy Hanks, parents of Abraham Lincoln, on file here in Washington County Courthouse. That is a relatively recent found document. For a long time, there was some question about the legitimacy of of Lincoln's parentage, but they found a document that certified that his parents were indeed married, and that was found there, and so there was a statue honoring that. They had apparently they had a contest to bring a statue to this place, and there were all sorts of people who presented models of it, and so these are some of those. I thought some of these were kind of neat. This is in Hodgenville, Kentucky, near Lincoln's birthplace. There's another copy of this on the campus of the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I don't know that we have a picture of that one. There is a tradition. There were a couple of traditions. One of them I'm not going to tell you about, but there is a tradition in Madison where people who are graduating from the university mount up there and sit on Lincoln's lap and get their picture taken. And so you just never know. Lincoln and his family moved to southern Indiana when he was very young, as you may know, and this is Lincoln's boyhood home in Indiana, and this statue that is a part of that. This is in Springfield, Illinois. This is in the train depot, and this is where Lincoln left Springfield in February of 1860 to eventually be inaugurated as president, and this is a statue to that with the train depot in the background. This is another one on the other corner. You'll see this statue 2 or 3 times. This is inside the Lincoln Library. This is inside the Lincoln Library, and this is Abraham and 3 of his sons. One son has already died. Another one, the one on the right, will die while Lincoln is in the White House. The other one, Tad in blue, will die in 1879 when he was about 18 or 19. Robert Lincoln, the fellow in the back, is the only one of the 4 boys that lived to maturity and had quite a career in his own right. This is on the square in Springfield, Illinois. This is Mary is adjusting Lincoln's tie, and they're saying goodbye to Tad as he goes off to school. This is the Illinois Capitol in Springfield with a Lincoln statue in front. This is the Lincoln tomb, and a Lincoln statue, of course. Now, this is the Borglum bust that you saw in the Capitol, in the rotunda. Well, this is a bronze of it, and one of the traditions with this is you'll notice his nose. This is not a great picture. I apologize for that, but notice his nose is shiny. Well, one of the traditions is that you go and you rub Lincoln's nose. And they've even got a step up so that if you're short on one end, you can still do that. So, but that's pretty impressive. Inside the tomb, you can walk around the tomb, and inside are a whole bunch of well-known statues that are smaller versions of it, of those. And so these are some statues that some of them we'll see later on. This is one outside the city library, and an abstract thing that is kind of weird. But it's a Lincoln statue. I had to take a picture of it. This is the last stop. Now, this is in Taylorville, Illinois, and there's a story about this with the pig. The old courthouse in Taylorville was built up so that there was empty space underneath it. And Taylorville was part of the 8th Judicial Circuit, which Lincoln went on twice a year. And there was this old story that at one time they were holding court in the courthouse, and there were a bunch of pigs that were rooting underneath the courthouse because it was out in the open. And they were making all sorts of noise and interrupting the court. And Lincoln, in his humor, asked the judge if he would order a writ of quietus to the pigs. And I don't know whether he ever did that, but that was the thing. So anyway, John McCleary was asked to do a statue for the Taylorville Courthouse, and that's what he came up with, and I think it's wonderful. Yeah, there's more pictures of it.
Is the pig holding something in its mouth? Is it the writ?
Yeah, I think he's got something. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah. Yeah. In the old state capitol in Vandalia, there's the Lincoln Park, and the old courthouse is behind it. The old Capitol building is behind it, and there's a statue of Lincoln. Matter of fact, John McCleary did this statue as well. There's another. This is in Lincoln's New Salem, and I don't remember who did that. I think, and then this is a group of a guild of surveyors sponsored this particular statue because Lincoln was a surveyor for a time, and so they sponsored that. This is at the entrance to Lincoln's New Salem, and how many of you know where a copy of this is, besides Virginia? Oh, well, yeah, but there's another copy really close to here. There's just one in Lincoln City. Just go down to the Dairy Queen and turn east, and it's 2 blocks away. Yeah, I showed you that abstract of Lincoln. Well, there's all sorts of silly stuff about Lincoln too. This is a tourist stop. It's a resort sort of thing, and they've got this 40-foot fiberglass Lincoln. And the funny part about this is, in a really tragic way, is that every once in a while you have somebody who wants to shoot his finger off, and so they've had to repair that several times over the years, but you can see the size, because that's on this right one. That's Virginia in the light colored T-shirt there, and the friend of ours from Paris, Illinois. I took my wife to Paris one time, Illinois.
Because there was Lincoln there.
Yeah, well, there was Lincoln there. This is the site of the 4th Lincoln-Douglas debate in Charleston. And the picture, the statuary that's there, there were seven Lincoln-Douglas debates, and there's either a marker or a statue at each of them. This is in Chicago, at Lincoln Square in Chicago. I think that's an Edward Fairbanks statue. But some of these are just so impressive to me, especially with the Walgreens picture in the background. It adds some panache to it, I guess. Lincoln is a young man. This is Augustus St. Gaudens, thank you. Marvelous standing Lincoln in Lincoln Park. I'm glad you're around, DH. Keep me going here. Yeah, St. Gaudens. This is a well-known. And then this is St. Gaudens sitting Lincoln in Grant Park, also in Chicago. I love it. This is our friend, Virginia's former college roommate who lived in Chicago, took us around and we hit some of these places where she knew where some of these statues were. She knew where this one was too, which is a little strange too, but that's Virginia and Judy and Mr. Lincoln, kind of Mr. Lincoln. The Abraham Lincoln Bookshop is Mecca to me. The difficulty with the Abraham Lincoln Bookshop is that there's nothing in there that I can afford. But just to go in there and breathe that rarefied air is wonderful. And huh? Yeah, there's some security there, but this.
Okay, I have to tell a short story. When we were here, Judy found a parking place right outside. But you have to put coins into a parking meter. So Frank says, oh, just put in 30 minutes worth. I went out 2 more times and put money in.
Well, you get carried away. Yeah, I mentioned that my birthday is July 23rd. If anybody wanted to buy me something, that would that would work. This is stuff that was in the Abraham Lincoln Bookshop. That is too. This is in Vicksburg at the Visitor Center in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And this is a famous work known as the Council of War. And with Grant and Stanton and Lincoln sitting. And I read someplace that Robert Lincoln thought that this was the best depiction of his father that he had ever seen. So, were they life size? Pardon me? This one is not. No. And I found one of these for sale here a while back on eBay, and my wife is so cheap. I mean, it was only $14,000. God. This is on the battlefield in Vicksburg. Very important battle, as you probably remember, but this never happened. This is some Southerner who had visions of something or other. Lincoln never met Jefferson Davis when Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy. He probably knew Davis when Lincoln was a one-term representative in Congress, but he never met him in this kind of a context. And but this is all fiction, but it's a great statue of Lincoln. This is one of the weirder statues of Lincoln that I've ever seen. This is Rogers State University in Claremore, Oklahoma, Will Rogers State University in Claremore. And I don't know what the inspiration was for this statue, or maybe it was a lack of bicarb or something. I'm not sure just what's going on here. That used to be a statue of Lincoln. We got there a little late. A wooden one, which I was really kind of interested in, but that's all that was left. This is in Topeka, Gage's statue of Lincoln. This is one that we found in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and that was kind of neat too. They had 2 or 3 other statues there. One was Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. Now this is the Capitol in Lincoln, Nebraska, and this is the the Lincoln in front of the Capitol building. And this is another Daniel Chester French, the guy that did the Lincoln Memorial. That's his statue also. You might recognize that one. And that was Gunsel Borglund, and that magnificent work. This is just east of Laramie, Wyoming, on Interstate 80. It's the highest point on Interstate 80, by the way, and this massive statue that sits in this rest area. This is the only other wooden one that I can remember, a big one like this. And this is in the Lincoln's $50,000 bar on I-90 in Montana. And that's all I know about it. This is Boise, Idaho. There's a statue right in front of the Capitol building in Boise. And then there's this. That's also in Boise. Now this is a Borglund statue as well, and the original of this is in Newark, New Jersey, and I've never seen the original, but this is a copy of it, and I'll show you. You can see the size. Yeah, you can see the size of it. It's bigger than life. This is a statue in the Idaho State Archives in Boise. A guy who was a significant Lincoln collector in Boise was an attorney, and he gave his collection to the Idaho State Archives, and this was part of it. This is across from the Federal Building in Spokane. There are more Lincoln statues in Spokane than there are in Oregon, by the way. I mean, in Washington, there are in Oregon. I found this at an art show one time in Spokane and thought these were kind of strange, but there was a whole bunch of Lincoln stuff. And so I just took pictures. This is at the county hospital in Davenport, Washington, which is the county seat of Lincoln County, Washington. And the lady was quite proud of Lincoln County. Even has a flag with Lincoln on it, which is more than Lincoln County in Oregon can do. I'll tell you about that in a minute. This is technically Washington, but not really. This is on the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. They have a little dedicated museum on their ship, and some friends got me on to go on a tour with them, and so that fellow is a chief. And he took us on a tour of the U.S. Abraham Lincoln, and that was great fun. And I was stood on the flight deck, and I called Virginia and said, "I'm standing on the flight deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln, goodbye." And then I did the same thing with our son and with our daughter. So, because that was pretty neat for me. Yeah, and there's another statue. This is in the that was in the museum. On the one on the left is in the museum, and the one on the right is in one of the galleys on the ship. So that was kind of impressive. This is Lincoln High School in Tacoma. Now there's also a Lincoln High School in Seattle, and they have a statue, but it didn't make it into this because I saw it after this was put together. And there's also a Lincoln High School in Portland that has a statue, and it's really strange because there's I don't know who did it or when it was done or anything about it. but here's the Tacoma one. In Redlands, California, there is the Lincoln Shrine. And so we have been there a couple of times, taking pictures. Lighting doesn't help that at all, I don't think, but that's another different issue. This is another bus that they had, something else that they had. Okay. Iwa Elementary School in Honolulu, Hawaii. There was a lady who was the principal at this elementary school. She was unmarried. She died and left a small bequest to the school district with the instruction and the hope that somebody would create a statue of Abraham Lincoln as an inspiration for her children, for the children that were coming up in the school. And it sat there for a long time because there was not a lot of money involved. But finally, a guy by the name of Avard Fairbanks, who lived in Seattle, took up the challenge and did this statue, which is really kind of a neat thing. And so that's at this elementary school in Honolulu. It's kind of neat. Whoops, what'd I do? I hit the wrong button, Dodie. Thank you, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there we go. All right. All right, this is another, how much time? Oh, we're in good shape. Okay, Ketchikan, Alaska. This totem pole depicts an event that happened some years prior. There were two tribes, one much larger than the other, who were at war, and the larger tribe was pushing the smaller tribe into the sea in Alaska. And a U.S. gunboat came along and helped settle the whole thing and bring peace to the whole thing. And the smaller tribe that got saved from, essentially saved from extinction, were so grateful that they built a totem pole to Lincoln, because the name of the gunboat was the USS Abraham Lincoln. The problem was that they only had a picture of Lincoln from here up. And so they didn't know how tall he was. So he's pretty stubby here. But that's, there's a totem pole park in Ketchikan, and that's where this is. Now there's another copy of this in Springfield, Illinois. And this isn't the original anymore. The original is long gone. It got weathered, and so this is a copy too. But there, at least Alaska can claim that they have a Lincoln statue. Okay, now Jim mentioned this morning about statues that are being torn down and taken down. Well, unfortunately, this is one of them. This is in the park blocks in Portland. It's a block away from the Oregon Historical Society. And, oh gosh, first of this year, I think this happened. Some Indians decided to pull it down because they were mad at Lincoln for an incident that happened during his presidency. There was an Indian uprising. And so a whole bunch of depredations happened, and the U.S. Army finally got everything corralled and figured it out, and they tried about 300 of the 270 or something, I don't remember the exact number, of these Indians, and condemned them all to death. And Lincoln said, wait a minute, I want to look at this. And so he read through all the trial transcripts of each one of these, and he limited it to 39 Indians who were hanged because they had committed murder, they had committed rape. The rest of them had not done that, but that was the judgment that Lincoln used on this thing. And so, but for whatever reason, a bunch of Indians decided that they'd been violated long enough, and so they yanked that statue down. So I don't know where it is or in what shape it is, and if we'll ever see it again.
Frank?
Yes?
If I might.
Please.
At the time that happened, I was state commander for the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. And so we contacted them because...
Oh, good.
Well, let me tell you, over the last maybe 20 years, our group has restored over 160 monuments and tombstones of Civil War veterans and have placed tomb markers for unmarked graves
Right.
for veterans. At any rate, we said this is the kind of thing that we do.
Yeah.
And so we'd like to offer whatever help we could do to restore this thing, because it had all kinds of paint on it and stuff like that. They were not interested. I really got the runaround, and then finally, I get this nice letter back, but if I might paraphrase it, what they said, well, what we said is what we'd like not to see is this monument to be put in some warehouse someplace.
Yeah.
And never to be seen again. So we could clean it up and put it back in place. We could replace it someplace else within the state. I mean, we could do a lot of different things. We got a very nice letter back. They said, thank you for your concern. We appreciate your involvement in these things. But you have to kind of remember that the protesters had a point too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
And we'll put together this advisory committee, because the statue was donated to the city of Portland. And so they own it, okay? And they said, but we are going to put together this advisory committee if you'd like to be on it. And so two of us, I was on it as commander, and then our memorials officer was also on this advisory committee.
Was there anybody else that had any sense of history on the committee?
I wouldn't know, because we were never contacted.
Gotcha.
And then the next thing we know, we read in the paper that it is in a warehouse.
Yeah.
And there are no plans to do anything with it.
Yeah. Well, I've got pictures of it. There's another Lincoln statue that's in a warehouse in Ashland, Oregon. That statue was up for a long time, and then somebody down in Ashland decided to decapitate it, and so they took it down and put the head back on and put it back up, and somebody did it again. So they just stuck it in a warehouse, and Lord knows where that is either, but it happens. So at any rate, but I think it's a neat one. There's the one in Lincoln City. This is in the Lincoln Library in Turner, Oregon. This is my stuff. Yeah, it's the guy that I bought these two from was commissioned to do larger busts. They wanted Lincoln the Prairie Lawyer, the unbearded one on the left, on the right, and then Lincoln the President on the left with the beard. And those are in the basement of the old Capitol building in Springfield. And he did the same one on this one, and this is Lincoln at Gettysburg. I just think that's it.
How big is that?
Pardon me?
How big is it?
Oh, it's only about this tall. Yeah. That one's, I don't know what the original is, but that one, yeah. The thing on the right is a thing that I found at an antique store, and the guy said that he had gotten it from a guy who had gotten it from a guy who had taken it out of of a bank in Spokane. They're taking a bank down, and I think it's probably a Lincoln Savings and Loan or something like that. This sits on the floor of my Lincoln library because it's solid bronze, and I don't know how to attach it to the wall.
Yeah.
And I don't have any wall space anyway, but that's the way it goes. I guess that's, no, did I hit the wrong button?
You did.
Huh?
Oh, wait, no, that's the end of your show.
Was that is that the end?
That's the end.
The road ends in turn.
That's the last one, right?
That's it, that's the end?
That's the end.
You survived, look at that. Questions, comments, rebuttal?
Hey, Frank?
Just a minute, let me.
So, Frank,
Oh, people, James.
I'd like to ask a question in that you have much more background.
This
In
is called
this particular study.
BS, but I wanted to let you know that.
No. My question to you is because there's so much difference of opinion, what do you think Lincoln's position was on the scriptures and or the church?
I think Lincoln respected the church. He never became a member of a church. The things that Brian has been saying as far as being a Christian, doing the things that would identify oneself as a Christian, Lincoln never did. His wife did, but Lincoln never did. And there were, at one point early in his life, Lincoln probably could be termed a skeptic. But you read some of his writings and especially, just read some of his stuff and get to the end of his life and read the second inaugural, and the scholars say it's a sermon. So there's this transition, this movement in his life. Huge respect for Scripture. I think that Lincoln acknowledged a supreme being, whether that supreme being was personal or not is a debatable issue. But he acknowledged a supreme being, and I think he acknowledged because he was a real strong Calvinist, without using that term, who really believed that everything was destined by this supreme being, and to the point that he has this document that was found after he was assassinated, that his secretaries found, called the Meditation on the Divine Will, and he brought some of that into the second inaugural, just to say it's God's will that this war continue because of slavery. Both North and South are responsible for this, and it's God's will that it continue until there is enough blood shed that it's over. So, I mean, he was a fatalist. I think he had a profound respect for Scripture. To my knowledge, he never, I take that back, he rarely talked about Jesus. It was God. But I think he had a profound respect for Scripture.
Would he have had any Christian mentors, preachers of the day that had access to him?
Yes, especially the Presbyterian minister in Springfield. After when he did the funeral service for his son, Willie, who died. Yeah, it was Willie.
He was
Huh?
It was Eddie.
It was Eddie, you're right, yeah, Willie died in the White House, sorry, thank you. Yeah, I think that man had some influence. He had written a book, kind of an apologetic, and Lincoln requested it and wanted a copy of it and read into it, I think. But I have always thought that Lincoln would have appreciated the Campbellites. The way we approach Scripture, the emphases that we make, but I don't know whether he ever became in contact with them. Now, there are a bunch of church groups, including the Christian churches, who have claimed Lincoln, but lots of people claim Lincoln for whatever reason. And there's been a bunch, and there's some wonderful stories about Lincoln leaving the White House at night and under wraps and going and being secretly baptized and all that kind of stuff, and it's a bunch of hooey. But lots of people want to claim attachment to him for whatever reason.
The story I like is the one that tells when he started wearing his beard, because a little girl on one of his tours told him he looked better in a beard.
Yep, and that happened after he became president, and then she